Greetings this evening of your time as you create time to exist. How are you all?
Fine.
Are you all alive?
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you. Allow me to begin by entitling this interaction, Look Before You Leap. Before proceeding to perhaps the main, very simple conceptual topic, allow me to first say, as a representative, as an ambassador, as a diplomat, of what you consider from your perspective to be an extraterrestrial society, to say that it brings us great joy to create the opportunity to interact with you in this way. From time to time, individuals will inquire, well, why don't you just come down, land, say hello, face to face? All right, fair enough of a question. Therefore, we will address it before proceeding. One of our primary understandings as individuals, as beings, is the understanding that we, each one of us, create our own particular reality, completely, across the board, 100%. Not that we have a slight degree of control of the things that occur to us in our lives, but complete creatorhood. Therefore, we, in being able to respond to any situation that we do create, maintain complete responsibility for our creations. And in that sense, also understand that all other beings, all other life, all other consciousness also create their own reality. When one civilization is willing to honor this fact in another, it does so in the form of respect for your particular request and desire as a society, as a whole. Although you are individuals, you also create a society, a mass consciousness as well. Therefore, it is not our desire to, in that sense, impose upon your reality. And in holding high regard for your own creatorhood, will in that sense, shall we say, wait to some degree for an invitation en masse before we will proceed in that particular way. For it is not our purpose to, in that sense, create fear or insecurity. It is, on the other hand, quite important to us for you to understand that we do respect that creatorhood. We do respect your decision-making capability. As a society, if you factor everyone all together, there is not yet quite the willingness to embrace the existence of the many extraterrestrial societies that exist. So therefore, we respect this. But at the same time, we are able to perceive that there are many individuals who wish to interact with us, who wish in that sense to begin to exchange and share ideas with us. Therefore, perhaps in a sense you can say that this is our particular form of looking before we leap. The form before you that you know as channeling. For it allows us to share with you our consciousness, to share with you our ideas, but always then leaving you the option to believe them or not. And this is very unobtrusive. This leaves you the choice. This acknowledges your creatorhood. So we, in a sense, will feel out civilizations as soon as we have the indications that on some level they are ready to begin to look at alienness and the idea that there may be other life aside from the life on that planet. And this is one of the many ways in which we have had success in communicating with not only your own, but many other societies. Therefore, again, by convention, I cannot prove who I am, who I say I am. And it will always be up to you to believe it or not believe it. To take it one step further, it is not even a concern to me or us that you believe it or not. For in this format that you call discussion, in this format that you sometimes call discourse and exchange, the information that we wish to share will come out. And if it works for you, use it. If it does not, you will find something else. For you are perfect creators and always attract everything you need to create your life. It is not our purpose in any way in the creation of your lives to distract you from your choice to be physical, your choice to be beings in this world. In that sense, you will find you are most effective when you remain grounded anyway. Therefore, we remain unobtrusive and in the background in that sense for now, but still allowing for the opportunity to interchange in this way. Therefore, if again, the information that we share works for you, please take it. Please use it. It is the using and the doing that creates the life anyway. But if not, you will still have gained the gift of understanding and the gift of self-discovery. For though many individuals will choose to define themselves by aligning themselves with what they agree with, also do you learn great things about yourself, self-discovery and exploration through the things that you do not agree with and do not prefer. So no matter what you choose, you simply cannot lose in this situation. If you agree with what we are saying and use it, you will benefit from that. If you do not agree with what we are saying and do not use it, you will have defined yourself still further. You will have explored that much more about yourself. So simply, it is truly a win-win proposition. Allow us to thank you for that and your willingness to even think that it is possible to interact with us in this way. The concept of looking before you leap is very simple. And in general, we have an affinity for simplicity, for that is what you understand best in terms of being able to apply it, rather than creating a large series of steps. Before we do proceed with the simple concept, however, allow us to provide a foundation in the overall method that you use automatically many times to create your life, as we have said that you do. You are pure consciousness itself, and your body in that sense is not housing that consciousness. You are not within a body. In fact, if you wish to be quite technical about it and quite specific and accurate about it, your body actually exists within your consciousness as an expression of it. Your body is your consciousness itself. When you become physical and in that sense decide to explore individuality in this particular set of parameters of your world, you do create in a very specific way. There are three foundational ideas that comprise your creation, and one, shall we say, overall concept that allows you to then bring them into your life. The three ideas that comprise the prism that you are your beliefs, your belief systems, your emotions, your feelings, as you say, and your mentality or your thoughts, the things you think. One thing in that sense leads to the next. First, you have a belief, whether you have chosen to believe it from options or whether simply that is what your society has taught you is the only way. It always begins by assuming a particular belief or belief system. But it does not end by any means there. For the next in the chain, so to speak, is emotions. You are quite emotional beings. You have many feelings, many expressions of emotionality. But very often, it is not well understood that these emotions are always a response, always a result of a belief. No exceptions. Therefore, whatever you feel ever is always a response or a result of something you first believe. And you can always go backward and in feeling something that perhaps you wish not to feel, Say, what must I believe to feel that? And if you are honest, you will nail down a belief and have your, perhaps in this case, limiting belief right there before you. But as you do believe and then feel, you then also begin to generate thought. Thought with that feeling behind it and that belief as a foundation. These are the three ideas which you then use the fourth concept to midwife your reality, to bring it from concept to reality. And that fourth concept is action itself. You are physical beings in a physical universe for now, and therefore your actions are the most outward manifestation of your beliefs, emotions, and thoughts. You literally act the way you think, feel, and believe. Therefore, the action step is, shall we say, the main deliverer of the reality, the main creation mechanism in the life that you are leading. Therefore, a simple suggestion. When you act with a negative interpretation, oh, this is very bad, you believe that it is bad, you usually feel, as you say, bad about it. You think and expect, perhaps, a bad outcome. Therefore, when you act, it has to follow that you are acting with the subtle effects of that negative belief, emotion, and thought, that negative interpretation. And when you act, as we have said, that is what creates. All situations in your life, no matter what, no exceptions, are literally a neutral set of props with no built-in meaning. You assign the meaning. The meaning you assign determines the effect you get out because, as we have said, you then believe, feel, think, and act that way. If you have a negative interpretation, your actions will reflect this. And that is what brings you the negative result. But because all situations have no built-in meaning, and you are the true assigners of that meaning, if you choose to be a bit more clever about it, you will always also find a positive interpretation, a positive reason that you have created it. For all situations being neutral contain 100% potential for negative interpretation, but also 100% potential for positive. You can think whatever it is you wish and not have it negatively affect your life at all. It is when you act, it is when you do something while thinking, feeling, and believing that you get the negative effect. Therefore, it is quite safe to look at anything within you, no matter how positive or negative. For if you are only looking at it, evaluating it, thinking about it, it has no effect and allows you in that sense to look at the issue. Again, when you act, that is what transforms the energy of belief, emotion, and thought into physical reality. So, look before you leap is a simple concept. When you find yourself in a situation whereby you have interpreted that situation negatively, and you have a negative attitude about it, before acting, before doing anything, which again will bring you the result of that reality, allow yourself, perhaps as a game, perhaps as a challenge to yourself, to, before moving, before acting, before applying, to always provide yourself with one positive alternative. Well, all right, here is the situation. It seems quite negative. But before I do anything, allow me to look a little bit more carefully at what it contains. How does it actually serve me? Exactly the way it is. And you will find this is not your usual approach. So when you assume and adopt that approach, you will find something. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. In fact, it is allowing me to look at perhaps a particular issue, perhaps something that I believe that I wish to change. But always, if you give yourself the benefit of the doubt to provide some positive reason for any creation, then you have in front of you options. You are no longer automatically acting with a negative interpretation. You are giving yourself another choice. Now, you may feel free to choose either one. And should you, in that sense, find a great deal of momentum behind the negativity, by all means, act. You will get the evidence that we have shared. But very often, and perhaps most often, if not always, giving yourself the benefit of having provided the one positive interpretation and then putting them both on the table in front of you will generally result in it being far more compelling and easy and obvious and simple to choose the positive perspective. For neither one really has more weight until you assign the weight, until you assign that definition. So in giving yourself the opportunity to provide another choice, in general, if that choice is from a positive interpretation, the result will be preferable. The positive choice will simply be preferable. Well, I can do this, and I know this will make a mess of my life. But I can also do this, and oh, I hadn't thought of that. But perhaps that would, yes, have a better result. So the very simple concept that we are sharing is to always remind yourself when you begin to have the tendency to interpret something as negative, to remember that everything is truly neutral, that you are assigning that negative meaning, and that there is as well a positive interpretation, something good about it. In, again, invoking and providing yourself the opportunity to drum up how it serves you rather than why me. You will provide to yourself a new, more preferable option that will yield the results you say you desire. Is this understandable and clear?
Yes.
All right. We wish to keep it quite simple. We can, in that sense, make it more complex if you wish. But in maintaining the simplicity, it makes it that much more easy in that sense to simply apply right now from this moment forward. Before we proceed, allow us to tie this into another idea in changing beliefs that you have that you no longer prefer to have. For one perhaps valid question that individuals in your society from time to time will ask, well, it is all well and good to find my beliefs, but how do I change them to the beliefs that I prefer? All right, fair enough. Understand again. The original limiting belief only has an effect because after feeling that and thinking that way, you act that way. And that is the only thing that actually gives the negative effect. You have within your consciousness something that you call your imagination. Very often, it is utilized as an escape from reality, but it is actually far more than just that. It is a tool that is tuned to who you are and can be used in any situation in the following way. Once you have, in that sense, recognized that you have a belief that you no longer prefer to have, first of all, acknowledge it. You cannot change anything by denying it. Only by acknowledging it can you then equalize it to any other choice. Denial gives it more weight, more attention, more tendency to choose it. So by acknowledging the belief that you have, that is always the first step. You can only change a belief if you first are willing to own that you have it. Secondly, and this is where your imagination comes into play, you can provide to yourself a model of how to proceed by simply, in your imagination, determining, all right, what is the belief I wish to have? Stating that belief, see yourself in your imagination as a person who already has that belief. You will then begin to feel the feelings, the emotions of that belief. Even just sitting there in your chair as a mental exercise, if you state the belief you wish to have and really say it like you mean it, you will begin to feel it. You will begin to have the emotion that corresponds to that belief. When you are willing to muster up this emotion, you will also find your thinking will change. And the very simple way to complete this idea is to simply ask yourself in your imagination, how would I act if I believe this? By stating that you believe it and feeling it, it will be quite easy to see in your imagination how that preferred you moves. How do they hold themselves? What do they do? How do they interact with other individuals? You will see in your mind's eye how a person with that belief would act. You will also see that those actions are quite different from what you were about to do. The very simple last step is to simply do the things that are representative of the belief that you wish to have. In other words, act as a person would act that already believes that. This is how you already create your reality. We are not asking you to do something that you are not quite good at. Simply, we are suggesting that you can do so purposefully, consciously, according to preference, simply because you wish to create the life you prefer. So therefore, once you have acknowledged the belief that you no longer prefer and can see how it feels, how you think, and how you act with that belief, provide again another alternative using the template, the mold, the model of your imagination, creating a preferred you as a reference, the referential, preferential you. See how that you acts in the same situation. The actions will be different. And then you will have again in front of you upon your table two choices. One which will obviously yield a negative reality, and a new one that perhaps you would not have thought of, which once you see that it is even an option, will again be far more attractive to choose. Oh, hadn't thought of that. Well, if I do that, most obviously I will have a different effect than if I throw a fit. Therefore, before you act, before you leap, look, observe, provide alternatives. Understand that you are the assigner of meaning, and the meaning you assign determines the effect you get out. The simple willingness to assign a new meaning will change the effect you get out. And therefore, there will no longer need be anything in your life that seemingly doesn't belong. For it only seemingly doesn't belong when you say, why is this here? Why me? Everyone knows that stinks. But the idea is that it is also serving it. When you say everyone knows that stinks, you do not use that creation and it hangs around. When you say, all right, obviously this is something I would generally see as negative, but I know I am a perfect creator. I know that everything that exists belongs. Therefore, how can I use even that seemingly negative creation? Oh, it does allow me to look at this, this, and that. Oh, now that I have seen this, I can move in a positive way. You can use all your creations by not assuming that they are extraneous. Allow me now to thank you all for your willingness to interact with us and the various civilizations that are, shall we say, listening in on this end. It brings us great joy to interact and to discover just how many more ways all that is, which is our name for God, all that is expresses itself throughout the multiverse. For your idea of universe, you will find, is quite dated. There are many dimensions of experience, many different dimensions within the overall creation. So therefore, universe in that sense is a bit of a limiting label. Multiverse in that sense is more of an acknowledgement of the completeness. But it always fascinates us to see any expression within the multiverse of all that is. And you are such an expression. Therefore, allow us, in interacting with you, as equals, as a reflection, as a mirror, to once again express our unconditional love and appreciation, and ask, how may I be of service to you? Shutting.
Elan,
Ice.
it's nice to be with you again.
And you as well. All of you.
Love to you. Elan, for approximately 2 years now.
One moment. Can you all hear this individual? Do speak up and be bold so that no one misses the gift you have to offer.
For approximately 2 years now, I've been receiving energy, particularly around my head. Originally, it started in the middle of my forehead, and I was able to move that energy down through my face and also through my body entirely. But that energy is so strong at times, it stays very strongly around my head. And I know it's being directed towards me for a purpose. I also know it's being directed towards me by an individual. Can you tell me how I can more effectively use that energy that is around my head many times during the day?
Ice. The idea is through the mechanism of what you sometimes call allowance. Very often when you feel an energy, which is your matching, your creation of the matching of that energy on your end, many times you feel it because of the differences rather than the similarities to your own energy. And in that sensing of differences, then, to some degree, provide a resistance. Simply by opening up and allowing the energy through without any, shall we say, effort on your part, you will generally find it to smooth out. And as in that sense you acclimatize and get used to it, so to speak, you may even seem to experiencing it disappearing altogether. It has not disappeared. You have simply now raised your level to match it and no longer perceive a difference. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Therefore, simply relax, allow it on through, and understand that it is, again, as you have already suggested, an expression of the communication that you are now beginning to do.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Shutting.
Hi, Elan. Very nice meeting you.
Greetings.
I got a couple of questions. One is, I've been meditating for a few years now, and I don't believe in coincidence.
By the way, before you proceed, coincidence is simply all the interwoven incidences occurring at the same time. Coincidence, in a sense, is automatic. Perhaps what you mean is you don't believe in accidents. Do proceed.
Okay, and I've met a gentleman, who was here, at a different organization, and we got to talk about metaphysical stuff. And I went down there, and to make a long story short, I opened myself up for channeling, and through time, I've had this energy coming in. And I guess the questions I want to ask, I want to describe is I have this strong energy coming in, which is turning on my face and my tongue and going through my whole body. And I've asked my guides, and I have a group of people that are helping me with this, so to speak. And I've had one lady say that she saw Bashar there, but it was helping indirectly. I asked my guides if this energy is from Essassani, and they told me yes. And I asked if it was you. I asked if it was Bashar, and they told me no. I'm just asking, is this Essassani energy coming in? And if it is, how can I quicken the pace or allow it to happen?
There is a very direct connection to our society. And by the way, for those of you who are new to these interactions, though we are a telepathic society and no longer utilize language, for we are in touch mentally, so to speak, we did at some point in our history contain the idea of language. One of the reasons we provide names, my name is not Elan, I have no name, is for your benefit. But there is still some remembrance of an ancient remnant language that we did used to utilize in that way. Therefore, our particular name for our society would translate into your phonetics as Essassani. S meaning place and Essassani meaning living light. For we understand all life to be an expression of light itself. Thus, we have named our world. Thank you for the clarification opportunity. And in your instance, there is a direct connection to our society. But what you are asking me is best answered directly with the, shall we say, direct line that you have established.
Okay.
And the aforementioned information to the preceding individual before you of relaxing and allowing the energy in that sense to express itself. There needn't be no effort on your part. And very often the effort that you perceive that will enhance what you are doing actually shuts it down.
All right.
Therefore, you may find if there is, in a sense, a feeling of resistance, to simply deepen what you call your breath and concentrate, or in a sense, relax into the breath itself. For that is an exchange. It is the inflow and the outflow, and in that sense accomplishes many other things as well. But you have a direct line and can ask any questions as to the specific agreements that you have, which it is our perception, incidentally, that you do, directly from the source.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
one quick little question. Out of curiosity, during open eye meditation, what I've noticed for 2 years now, I've had some ovals of light come to me. And on my meditations now, I have 2 white forms on either side of me of no particular shape. And I'm also seeing all kinds of sparks and blue things and all kinds of things. I was wondering if you could maybe help me to see what that could be, too.
All right. Do understand that as human beings, you are very focused beings. And one of the definitions of this type of reality is focusing to a very fine point, basically by choice, at the exclusion of 99.999% of the rest of reality. Therefore, when you begin in that sense to defocus from what you consider to be your typical personality quotient, so to speak, you will begin in that sense to enhance what you call your physical senses and begin to perceive what is generally beyond the reach of the eye of most individuals. Therefore, it is a direct reflection of your willingness to open up to the many sensitivities that you are exploring.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Is that all?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shut it.
Good evening.
Greetings.
Greetings. I have a couple of questions.
All right.
Okay. I wish to know of a planet of lion people, one in particular which I have close contact with.
All right. Do, in that sense, speak a little louder and repeat.
Okay. I wish to know of a planet of lion people, one in particular which I have very close contact with, and the being's name is Romar.
What would be the specific question?
What is my relationship to this entity?
Your relationship is what you call archetypal. Does that make sense?
Yes. Is this also to be a future connection? What I would use the term future?
Well, to some degree, but perhaps in the form you are perceiving more of a past recollection.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Why is this particular being around me much of the time now?
Well, in a sense, you may understand that you have a direct connection and the willingness for the functioning of what you generally refer to in your society as a guide. But the specific symbol of lion-like, so to speak, has far more to do symbolically with your particular exploration of what you call courage itself.
Okay.
Willingness to be bold in your conviction of who you are and move forth sharing the gift of who you are without withholding, without needing to be responsible for someone's reaction to you, but being responsible directly to them by being the best you can be. Very often you will find that individuals will say, in your society in particular, things that other individuals wish to hear rather than what they truly think. And though this may on the surface seem like a form of a favor, in actuality it is a complete withholding of who you are. It allows an individual to converse with themselves rather than you. Therefore, perhaps it will be obvious to you how this applies to you.
Okay.
Do you know, in that sense, what I mean?
Yes. I have a brief question. In relation to creating our own life, are we subject to the other people that are a part of our scenario as far as our success in the experience of the exact future which we are envisioning?
Only if your definition says that you rely on those others. But you may understand that you can independently achieve your own, so to speak, success, which will then result in the success seemingly of your planet in your perception. But when individuals utilize other individuals in that sense to withdraw or withhold who they are, that is a decision, a choice, and a definition. So perhaps the answer is it's up to you, but you do not have to be bound by that. If you simply decide that you are who you are, will do what you will do, and the others who will assist you in a positive way, all well and good. Those who will not, you will glean what you have gotten from a service from them and move on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Shut in.
Good evening, Elan.
And to you. Good day.
Many of us here make identification with an Orion presence,
In what way?
that we have been in the Orion area in the past.
All right. There is, shall we say, many or several civilizations that do in that sense exist in the area or constellation you call Orion, which actually takes up quite a bit of space and is not perhaps the small area you are imagining. What is your particular exploration?
My particular exploration is how my and some other people who are here with me now, how our experience in the Orion realm relates to what we're doing here now and how we're relating to each other.
All right. The connection is very direct. For very often individuals who will incarnate in this reality from that system have done so from a point in history of that system that was considered negative, where the society itself was somewhat oppressive, dominating, perhaps to some degree what you would call fascist. There were many individuals who did choose to relocate in that sense, incarnationally, not via spacecraft, but spirit, so to speak, wise. And in that sense, in participating in this reality, which also has many, shall we say, anchors in negativity, also has many positive alternative viewpoints. Many individuals have incarnated into this system to ground themselves into the positive alternative and, in a sense, colloquially speaking, beam back much of this information as an assistive stream to that particular negative reality. Did that translate?
Yes, it did. We're basically working out the negative and changing it around to the positive.
And having a very positive effect back there from your willingness to experience in this way.
As we lift ourselves, we lift the people, the beings back there we had relations with.
You provide that many more options, which if they decide to partake of, will create that, yes.
Thank you. That's a very interesting aspect.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing the energy.
Anytime, as you say. Shutting.
Good evening, Elan.
Greeting.
I'd like to go back when I was young, reference in mind.
Go right ahead.
When I was a young child, about 10 years old, I was doing homework in the kitchen, and I saw something in the window which hung at the window, and I was not afraid of it, and I just watched it.
Describe.
It was global, it was golden color, and it was just like it was just hanging on the window, but it was hanging at the top pane. It had nothing underneath it.
What was your perception of the approximate size?
About 8 inches or so, 10
All right.
inches. And it just moved and edged its way away, and I never seen it, and I was just curious if you could shed some light as to what I may have observed, because I feel now that there might be some connection.
Well, in a sense, first of all, you provided a symbol to yourself that everything that you have always been told is the only way things are, isn't the only way. Therefore, perhaps again, as was mentioned before, it is a symbol that represents your willingness to perhaps begin to view the fact that there is more than meets the eye. May I ask you a question?
Please.
Because you have seen that and how that has allowed you to feel, what have you done perhaps differently? What has it caused you to explore?
Well, within this past year, I've been working with a woman, Mariah Carter, and I've been channeling energy. And this has come to me a few times. And I just wonder why I keep wondering about this incident that happened.
Well, in a sense, you have begun to take the steps that would loosely correspond to the purpose of the symbol. And that is your willingness to begin to dive into exploring the many other things that you are now interested in. In that sense, you may look at it as a key or a catalyst, which has, in a sense, began to allow you in taking it and turning it to open many doors within yourself.
Okay, may I expand upon that, please?
Yes. Please do.
Okay, one of the things I've been made aware of in conversations like this is that you are able to help people work through blockages.
Well, in a sense, sometimes in that sense, redefining the entire idea will then have the result of seemingly, quote unquote, removing the block. What is it that you feel is blocking you, and what are you blocked from?
Well, it might be just myself doing this, but I'm just wondering if there's something that can be done, or if I'm just looking for some insight.
Well, first of all, understand that technically speaking, there is no such thing as a block. For as we have said, all creation either exists or does not exist, but there is nothing that exists that doesn't belong, that is extra, that is extraneous. Everything in that sense has a reason. Therefore, what you experience in your society as a block is your definition that this is a block. For when you believe that, you feel it, you think it, and then how do you act? You act as though you are blocked. And those actions then literally create the effect of seeming blocked. But it is truly only the initial assignment of the definition. Simply understanding that nothing is extraneous. There are no extras in creation. And therefore, everything that is there has a reason. You then again use that rather than look at it as a block. Very often something will come, quote unquote, seemingly in your path. That is not what you expected. Therefore, you can either say, this is a block, and you will act that way, and it will seem as a block, or you can say, oh, how interesting. I did not expect that. Obviously, since I thought I was going to walk forward, and this is standing right here, forward is not the straightest way to where I am going. I will use this symbol to take a slight right or a slight left and look at where it leads me. Do you understand?
Yes.
Therefore, remove the notion and definition that you are blocked. Look at what you perceive as doing the blocking from the perspective of how it serves you. Use that creation in a positive way, and you will simply walk forward as though you are no longer blocked. One other idea is, though we use the analogy that something seemingly crops up in your path, it is only an analogy. For a path is not something you are on. A path is something that you are, and you cannot be off of yourself.
Interesting.
Oh, we think so, and thank you.
Thank you.
Shutting.
Good evening, Elan.
And to you.
We seem to be going through a period of great change.
Oh, not you too.
And we seem to be approaching a time where a rural environment is going to be of great advantage as opposed to living in an urban area.
Well, not necessarily, but there is, in that sense, beginning to be a concentrated understanding in the necessity to begin to, quote unquote, clean up your planet.
Do you see Rhode Island as being an area where there would be continued life for the foreseeable future, or do you think it would be a place that wouldn't be a great place to be?
There is a very strong indication that it would be a positive place to be. But if you are proceeding from the understanding that there will be mass destruction, that is not our perception. Great change there will be. A transformation you are already most obviously within. But it need not be interpreted that the transformation can only occur that a new reality can only occur by the complete tearing down of the old reality. That is obviously one way, but it is not the only way. Very often what you consider to be predictions of an apocalyptic event that is upon you is actually only, back then, the sensing that a transformation would take place and great change would result. However, back then, when the prediction was made, the only way individuals could imagine a change, a newness, is by the tearing down of the oldness. Therefore, the predictions of the change and transformation were quite accurate. The predictions that they would occur in a negative way were an interpretation that was, shall we say, part and parcel of the time that the prediction was made. Therefore, you no longer need buy into and imbue, and therefore, perhaps you can say, have the self-fulfilling prophecy of interpreting that the only way you can transform is by first completely tearing yourself down. That is only one option. You can simply, rather than running from your old self in the form of tearing it down, simply establish your new self and walk toward that new self. That will automatically then distance you from the old reality without needing to tear it down or invalidate it or criticize it. For everything that you have ever been has led up to who you are now. So what is the sense in criticizing who you were if it got you to who you are?
It appears we're living in a time where we're moving into a more four-dimensional reality as opposed to a three-dimensional reality.
In a sense, yes, we prefer the terminology fourth density as opposed to dimensions. For you may perceptually still only seemingly perceive in 3 dimensions of space and the one fourth, perhaps you can say, dimension of time. But you will be less dense as a consciousness. Therefore, fourth density is the terminology that we prefer. For as you move up arbitrarily using the density system as a guide, each higher density is less dense. You are now third density beings, but actually more appropriately third transitional fourth, and perhaps this is what you mean. Do proceed.
Would there be any obvious observations that we'll notice as we enter into this change?
Absolutely. You will begin to find that in order to participate in the change, that you will begin to be who you are, without doubt, without hesitation. Therefore, you will begin to understand that certain things excite you, other things do not. The things that excite you are representative of who you are. And if you are willing to act upon what excites you with integrity, you begin to establish in no uncertain terms who you are, who you choose to be. Therefore, when you begin to willingly fulfill who you chose to be, honoring that feeling within you that tells you who you are, things become more effortless. So first of all, you will notice things will begin to flow. Things will become more effortless. You will not be so, as you say in your slang, heavy. Also, your creation of time itself will begin to decrease as you integrate yourself and no longer see the separations, which then require much time to view each separation. And as you integrate yourself, you literally create less time. So there will be the apparency that time flies by, as you sometimes say, when you are having fun. You are literally creating less time in relation to the agreed upon time stream of your society. So your, shall we say, perception of time will change, and that will, in general, result in the prolonged longevity of your physical body itself. For understand, though you generally live in a body, or shall we say as a body, in this reality from approximately 60 to 100 of your years, the physiological potential for this style of physical body is up to 300 years. But this only occurs when you change your relationship of the creation of time. Again, you have the expression, time flies by when you're having fun. But this is not quite accurate, mechanically speaking. You literally, when you are having fun, are being who you are and create less time in relation to the mass creation of time or your clock time. So therefore, when 2 of your clock hours have passed and you are having a good time being who you are and only seem in that sense to have experienced 20 minutes. Your physical body has only aged 20 minutes. Therefore, the lifespan becomes, shall we say, far more having the tendency to increase, though you may still experience it, so to speak, as the 60 or 100 years, so to speak. Did that translate?
Yes, thank you.
That also you will begin to, shall we say, lose the need for external sustenance, relying on something external from yourself to validate who you are. There will simply be the utilization of the external reality as a tool, understanding that it is only a reflection of the internal reality, therefore purposefully used in that way. You will also in general find your diet will decrease, become lighter, a bit more what you sometimes call natural, though perhaps if this is to the dismay of some, not before you are prepared. And also we'll find, as you are willing to express the dream of your life, less of the need to physically sleep and create a separate experience you call nighttime dream. For you are dreaming right now, and only do you, in this particular phase of your reality, make the separation between the nighttime sleeping dream and the daytime waking dream. This and much more is in store for you. I will not open too many presents for you.
Thank you.
And to you. Shutting.
Greetings, Elan. It's nice to see you again. Talk to you.
Nice to sense you as well.
Could you possibly pass along a message to Bashar for me?
All right. Consider that you now have a direct line, though I will remain in the front and simply speak in that way.
Okay. He helped me about a year ago with a phobia that I had, and I'd like to just tell him thank you.
By the way, he would like to tell you thank you. Thank yourself. He reflected back to you, but reflected back means you contained it to begin with. So if you will thank him, he will in that sense accept it, if you simultaneously thank yourself.
I'm aware that I controlled it, but he did make me aware.
All right. But it does sound like him, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely. Several questions. First of all, could you tell me in detail what it is that the Essassani eat?
Well, now understand, as you are third transitional fourth density, we are fourth density, which is still physical, transitional fifth, which is the first, shall we say, level of non-physical existence, no body. So right now we eat quite little. Perhaps you can say almost, all right, zilch. But the idea is, were we to, for some reason, have the desire to do so, understanding the tool, we would in general perhaps ingest what you generally call to be vegetable matter or fruit matter, so to speak. We now exchange our energy directly with what you would perceive to be the environment itself. But there is still, again, for the purposes of perhaps enjoyment and just to do it, the vestigial option to eat in that way. But again, would be quite simple.
And the Zetas, what do they eat?
There are differing ideas. There are differing, shall we say, styles of Zeta physiology. Some, again, will literally perhaps create something similar to what you actually call photosynthesis, though slightly different. Thereby, they, again, will perhaps derive sustenance from light itself. But there will also be several forms of, perhaps you can say, artificially derived sustenance through natural means that perhaps, in that sense, fulfill, all right, the minimal daily requirements.
Okay, I have another question.
All right.
What are your thoughts on the Ouija board?
It is, in that sense, one conduit through which individuals will many times loosen up enough to allow a co-created communication. Therefore, it is one way through which you can access other portions of your own consciousness, or colloquially what you call other consciousness altogether, including our own. There are, shall we say, certain times whereby individuals similar to myself, not necessarily me, will communicate in a similar way through that device. At first, generally that will prime the pump and lead up to a more blatant interaction of one form or another, either what you call mental communication, right to the form of verbal, so to speak, communication that you are perceiving right now.
I was curious because I've just started fooling around with the Ouija board.
Well, have a good time and maintain that attitude of playfulness and fooling around.
I am. I recently got in contact with a female from a planet she said was about 10,000 light years away. And when I asked her how I was able to make contact with her over that big a distance, she said that it was energy.
Well, understand, perhaps, and again, this is colloquial and perhaps a bit catering to the conversation, but the speed of thought itself is perhaps far greater than what you call the speed of light.
Okay, I can understand that.
That is only one way to look at it.
I've had quite a few interesting conversations with her.
You will have many more.
I'm sure. A personal question.
Whoa.
I've recently become aware of the fact that I am one of the many who have been detained.
Why is that your perception?
Well, there was a lot of strange things that had occurred in my lifetime, and I went through some regression, and these were things that came out. And I was wondering if you could shed some light.
Not really. For specific reasons of your own exploration, it would in that sense not behoove you for me to be too specific about this, other than to say, to trust what you are feeling, and in following it through, all will become absolutely obvious.
I kind of thought you'd
In a
say
sense that will distract you from another idea we wish you to explore.
Okay.
In general, were that not the case, it would be our pleasure to share. But you have the answer within you.
As a result of my finding out about these things, I'm going to be working with within a support group for abductees.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if...
All we will say is that in that particular situation, you will find it quite easy to connect with our stream. For there is much that we have to offer to individuals who have chosen to create those interactions in the mode you call victimhood. For there is an option. Only can you begin to understand the agreement you have made with those beings, and no one is detained without having an agreement. If you first acknowledge the agreement, if you say, oh, why is this happening to me? You then, again, believing that, feel, think, and act a particular way in the victimhood mode. But if you say, all right, I have no remembrance of making an agreement, but I know I create my own reality. I know it beyond the shadow of a doubt. Therefore, I must have made an agreement. Now I will look at what is the agreement. That is a different attitude. That is a different posture and orientation. That is an open willingness to explore, exchange, and share. That will literally get a different response from the literal physical beings doing the detaining. In a sense, they perceive it as you having woken up to the fact that you made the agreement, then they can discuss the agreement, but not until you acknowledge it. Therefore, this and much other information of this particular orientation will in that sense flow through you if you allow it during those particular gatherings.
Well, the thing that I thought was strange about the whole thing was that I don't feel like a victim.
What is so strange about that from what we have shared? You are simply acting as a creator, which is the other option.
I was just wondering if my feelings were really valid.
Well, obviously, yes.
So many of the other people who have been detained, they suffer a lot. They go through a lot of trauma, and I didn't.
Oh,
And I just thought that was...
Do understand that in general, individuals who attract themselves to those gatherings are only a cross-section of the population that does, in that sense, interact with extraterrestrials in that way. It is the ones that are in fear and the ones that feel as victim that generally come forth seeking support. There are, however, as many individuals who integratively enjoy those interactions, feel perhaps that they are a special part of their life that is very private, and those are the ones you generally do not hear from. You are bridging the gap between the two.
I had that feeling that I was.
All right. Then perhaps this one time I had humored you by sharing what you already knew.
Yes, you did. Another question. Does the name Rakta mean anything to you?
Ace, but what does it mean to you?
I'm not sure. It came to me, and I seem to think it's either a name of a person or a species. I can't figure out anything else than that. I've got images in my mind.
When you say it came to me, that implies it came from a source.
Yes.
Access the source.
Okay. I will work on that.
All right. How long will you work on it?
Until I get it.
Are you through?
Pardon?
Are you through?
Yes.
All right. Now that you have worked on it, what do you get? And understand what is being demonstrated is the simplicity through which you can approach it and the acceleration through which you can get the answer right now.
I had the feeling that it was me a long time ago.
All right.
Another.
Now, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
What was so difficult about that?
Well, because I had the feeling that this was so, but yet I didn't know if it was true or not.
Well, you have just told me that it is. Are you willing to maintain that conviction?
Yes, I think I am.
Now, if you believe that and feel what you are saying and think what you are thinking, your actions will now begin to, shall we say, transform some of the surface features of your life to provide the evidence that that is so. Just as you have been withholding that same evidence.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank yourself. We all say that, you know.
Yes.
Shedding. Oh, all right. At this timing, we will pause for a short break of 10 to 15 of your minutes of counting and resume contact at that time. All right, I'll say, before we continue, allow me to simply say, look before you leap, for the purposes of this discussion means look at all your options, provide perhaps at least one positive one before you act. What it does not mean is to hesitate. What it does not mean is to hold back. What it does not mean is not to leap or not to act, but simply is a recognition that you can perhaps insert a slight pause between the having of the idea and particularly a negative interpretation and the doing of the thing. So therefore, again, understand that although we are suggesting a pause to perhaps insert another alternative, we are not suggesting hesitation. We are not suggesting holding back being who you are. It is a gift to us to interact with you and your consciousness. There is truly, from our perspective, no such thing as a stupid question. Anything that you are curious about is not simply idle curiosity. It is your expression of your desire to learn, share, and grow. Therefore, please do not be shy and feel free to interact with us in any way that you so choose. Also understand, though you as beings many times will apportion yourself or break yourself down to many parts, subconscious, unconscious, id, ego, and so forth, we understand all beings as one whole, unbroken consciousness. Though you do define yourself in parts, we define ourselves in wholes. And when we communicate to you, we communicate to you from our wholeness. Because you still to some degree do define yourself as a collection of parts, you will perceive this from that perspective or point of view as our communicating to you on other levels beside verbally or visually as you see before you. Therefore, understand that this interaction is taking place on the many levels that you separate and choose to create within your reality. And more, again, is going on than perhaps meets the eye. Therefore, if you feel in that sense that you are being communicated to internally or mentally, yes, you are. We thank you. Sharing.
Good
Yes.
evening.
Greeting.
I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you.
Please share.
I was wondering if you could shed some light on a very close connection I have, and I've always felt, for the dolphins.
Oh, from our perspective, when scanning your planet, perhaps you can say from our spacecraft, we would perceive two, not one, intelligent species upon your planet. Humans, land humans, and water cetaceans, dolphins, whales. Though you consider that many of the, shall we say, other life on your planet has limited consciousness, what you call animal consciousness, this does not strictly apply to what you call dolphin, whales, porpoise, cetacean. Those consciousness are far, shall we say, closer or akin to your own, with the ability to self-reflect and the ability to understand yourself as a discrete individual. Therefore, when individuals begin to discuss and consider the idea of interacting with extraterrestrial civilizations or civilizations that are alien, so to speak, to them, understand that you have the unique opportunity of having such a civilization in your own backyard. Therefore, you, as many others, are beginning to emotionally understand and connect with this, and in a sense, welcoming back, so to speak, your lost brothers and sisters. When we communicate with species upon your planet, we are also in telepathic communication with dolphins and whales as well, though perhaps some of you may find that hard to believe. From our perspective, that is so. And you are recognizing this in no uncertain terms. Therefore, go forth and interact with them as an equal and allow the energy and the attitude that they imbue, that they represent, to be used by you to whatever degree you can incorporate it into the action of your life. They are very flowing. They are very playful. They are very light. They do not lose the child within as they grow. Therefore, they provide an example to you of such an option. And many of you find that attractive. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Is there a way that I can help myself to communicate more with them? Because visually I will be with them in a few weeks, and I will see them constantly visually.
Nice. What will be of assistance to you is perhaps two ideas. First of all, if you are in the position, physically swim with them, for their proximity, their closeness to you physically will allow you to perceive, shall we say, telepathic to some degree connections, though that will generally take the form of part two, which is emotions. They will generally communicate to you emotionally, which will then allow you to interpret that emotion and, in a sense, have a translation. Therefore, trust what you feel when you interact with them. Analysis has its place, but perhaps not in that interaction at that time.
Thank you.
Oh, and you as well.
I have another question. I was wondering if you could give us any new information on the recent intricate crop circles, and are they supposed to be messages that we are supposed to interpret in some way?
In a sense, yes. Perhaps you can call them elaborate postcards from the edge. They are, in a sense, many times, for there are some also created by members of your own society that are created from what you would consider to be extraterrestrial sources. Individuals on your planet are beginning to compile and interpret them. somewhat, shall we say, through what you consider to be mathematical means, but also through what you would perhaps sometimes call pictogram interpretation. There is much that is beginning to come to light within the individuals that are viewing these symbols. But understand that when you unlock them, when you translate them, so to speak, not only will you find, in that sense, perhaps you can say something more about us, collectively speaking, extraterrestrials, but you will also find something about yourself and your own planet and your own history as well. For there have been interactions throughout the course of your history, though perhaps not en masse. There are historical connections as well.
Will some light be shed in the not too distant future about
It is our
them?
perception that yes, perhaps even within the next year of your time, but the light will be shed by members of your civilization, for that is perhaps the challenge or the point of the symbols. Your willingness to extend yourself to, in that sense, interpreting them boldly will in that way unlock many other possibilities of a more direct connection and communication.
Okay. I have one other question that doesn't relate to the two other questions I asked.
All right.
I have someone very close to me, and for the past number of years, he is constantly finding dimes, and in the most unusual way and place. And is there an entity that's trying to reach him, or is...
Ace, his own self. For there are literally acres of diamonds in any particular, shall we say, ground of your reality. And it is not that you need look any further than right in front of your own face.
So there is a reason for the dimes.
Ace. It is, again, the willingness to see the treasures that are all around you in perhaps a more blatant form.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank him. Shutting.
Hello, Elan.
Greetings and good day.
5 years ago, my husband died.
All right.
Just wanted to know if he's okay, and does he know that I'm okay?
Question number 2, yes, absolutely. Question number 1, yes, absolutely. It is our perception in tapping into what you have shared with us that at this time he chooses to remain non-physical with the possibility of incarnating to, in that sense, participate in the transformational age of your planet, perhaps in a younger body. But for now, perhaps you can say he is functioning aside from his own orientation as a guide for several, shall we say, living members, including yourself.
Thank you.
Thank him. Shutting.
Elan, I have a few more questions.
Oh, all right.
Back to the Ouija board. Do you perceive that there are negative aspects to using the Ouija board?
Not if you are not of a negative vibration, for you can only experience a reality you are the vibration of. If you are the vibration of positively, unconditionally loving light and intention, that is all that can find you in that sense. Therefore, one thing that we would perhaps draw your attention to is the idea of fear itself. For fear is the same as saying that you believe that something that you do not prefer is most likely. So simply remain clear. If there are any fears there, look at them. Again, fear is an emotion. That emotion is always attributable to a belief. And when you look at the belief, in general, at this point, it simply will not hold up in the light of day, thereby giving you the option to choose the new belief, use your imagination to feel, think, and see how you would act with it, and thereby providing yourself the new actions that give you the new reality, as we have discussed.
Okay, I had contacted my grandmother through the Ouija board, and I had asked her if she was aware of what was going on within the family. And she said yes, and I asked her specific questions. She answered them. And then I said to her, do you see us? Because I was, I wanted to know, can they see us physically or however? And she said no. So I said, well, how are you aware of what's going on.
Understand now you are asking quite a physically oriented question to a being that is at least now focused in a non-physical way. So thereby the translation of that may seem a little bit unclear. But the idea is perhaps similar to my perception of you in this interaction, a sensing. Though do understand that there is the possibility of, shall we say, creating what you would perceive to be physical sight from time to time. But it is generally the exception rather than the rule, for their role is very unobtrusive.
She had used the term ego.
In what way?
And saying that's how she knew what was going on.
Well, in a sense, perhaps that was your interpretation. For ego in general is the portion of you that maintains your focus in physical reality.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions for the support group that I'm going to start for the abductees or detainees?
Other than what we have already shared, have a good time. Introduce the idea of lightness, of playfulness, of enjoyment into the scenario. That will lighten them right up.
Are you familiar with a project called C-SETI?
We understand the reference of the particular orientational approach of your society toward, in that sense, scanning for radio transmissions from space, yes.
There's a Dr. Greer who has started a project that he calls C-SETI, and he's had about an 85% success rate in having drawing into view UFOs. And he uses a combination of sound, laser light, and a meditation type of thing.
All right.
Can you, we'd like to start something like that similar, but I was wondering if it's worthwhile or, you know.
Well,
maybe.
only you can answer whether you feel it is worthwhile or not. From our end, it is always worthwhile to participate with those types of invitations, which is what they are. But do understand from our perspective, it is far more the telepathic intention than the physicalized expression of light and sound. Perhaps you can say the physicalized expression of light and sound is more for the benefits of the humans and their focus.
Sort of like just symbols for them to.
Nice. And also then, when the craft are drawn into proximity, perhaps developing a form of language between you, utilizing perhaps the light.
Okay.
But you will find if there is a de-emphasis of this style of needing to communicate in that way, there will be more of the sense of the telepathic communication, which may seem a bit clearer.
Okay.
But that will be up to you. If you wish in that sense to participate in it, go right ahead.
The crop circles, there's been on tape sounds coming from, I don't know if it was from the crop circle itself, but in the general area, there was sounds picked up.
Now, this may be from the craft that produced them in the ones that were produced in that way. It can also be due to what you may call interference, or perhaps you can say rechanneling of the electromagnetic field in the areas of occurrence that may, from time to time, have audio effects. Do understand, again, for the purposes of clarity, that many of what you consider to be crop circles are simply, shall we say, copies by members of your own society. But there are a percentage of them that are what you would consider in that way to be authentic.
I got the impression from looking at a lot of the pictures of the crop circles, for some reason, I just felt they had something to do with musical notes.
All right, then pursue that, and you will introduce and inject a new perspective.
Am I close?
It is, in that sense, indicative of the vibrational message within them, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Shouldn't.
Greetings, Elan.
And to you.
I was wondering if you could share any information about the constellation we know as Lyra.
Although you consider yourselves as humans, in that sense, to be at home, you are incarnational beings from this perspective in the aspect that you are eternal. And your soul, what you sometimes will call your soul, is eternal. Therefore, when mankind began, so to speak, you may understand that that was not the beginning of you. You are eternal. Eternal. This means you have no beginning. But you are in a universe, in a particular reality that has a timeline, a continuum, linear time. And therefore, prior to mankind on Earth, you have existed elsewhere in many other systems and societies. That particular system, referred to as the Lyran systems, is a system or point or nexus point of common origin of your own society and many other societies as well, physically even to some degree. Therefore, there are other civilizations that you consider to be extraterrestrial. One will stem from the star system you call the Pleiades. One will stem from the star system you call Orion. And they very literally have direct common roots with your society in that particular system. They are your extraterrestrial brothers, sisters, and cousins in that way. Will that suffice?
If you have more information, I'd like to know it.
There is the possibility of directly communicating with the stream you would call Lyran, though there have been many changes. Therefore, if there is a specific question that you have of me, please ask it. If not, access the source directly, for that is an option. But is there a specific question?
I feel a connection, and I'm not sure why.
All right. Do you have an affinity or attraction, or have you even heard of what you would consider to be Pleiadian society?
Yes.
It is our perception that your connection lies there. For you have in that sense had roots, connections, perhaps you can say lives, in not only your own society, but there as well. Does this point you in a usable direction?
Yes.
All right, then have a good time and smile.
Does that mean there's no connection with the other?
Oh yes, but we are saying the middle ground for exploring that connection is the Pleiadian connection itself.
Thank you.
And you. Sure.
Hi, Elan.
And to you, good day.
Thanks. About a week ago, I had a strong feeling of excitement. Wanted to bring my 10-year-old son here tonight.
Oh, all right.
He has a question for you, but before he asks that, I was wondering if you had anything specific that you might say to him.
Welcome, and we thank you for your willingness to share yourself with us. It is our joy.
Sometimes I think about the things that almost happen, and I was wondering, and I think I have two lives at the same time, one that we're having right now, and the other with all the stuff full of the things that almost happened. And I was wondering if that could really happen.
Well, in actuality, yes. And understand, though you are only... One moment. Though you are only speaking to me of two of your lives, you have many more than that. What you are perhaps speaking of is probable realities. And what this means is this. When you are walking down your street and you come to a fork in your road and you decide, I will go left, there is a portion of yourself that has decided to go right as well. Though you, in that sense, perceive having gone left, there is in the totality of existence a portion of you that took the right, and then, in that sense, led the life that resulted from the different choice. These are sometimes called parallel or probable realities. If you are, in that sense, sensitive, as you are becoming, you can begin to feel some bleed through from these ideas. So yes, any decision that you make, perhaps you can say there is another portion of you that lived the other decision. But you have chosen to live this decision, and that will be mostly what you see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Therefore, enjoy it. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
No.
All right. We thank you.
Thank you.
Sitting.
I wanted to ask you a question. I have a friend that's agonizing over the issue of abortion right
Oh,
now.
agonizing. All right.
And I spoke with her and told her that I was coming here tonight, and she asked if I would see if you had any comments from your perspective on that subject.
All right. What is her consideration?
Well, she was brought up to believe that it was a terrible and horrendous thing to have an abortion. And so she, when faced with this decision to make, just had a very hard time seeing it from any other perspective than the belief systems in which she grew up.
Are there other options other than what you call the abortion that in that sense would still allow her to be who she is and at the same time fulfill the agreement she has made?
Not at this point. She already had it done.
All right. The idea is this. First of all, understand that as you are eternal, so is everyone else. Therefore, any soul that would agree to participate in a reality whereby they would begin in that sense to incarnate into a birth, into a life, and then in that sense not complete that cycle, they still exist, for they are also eternal. But many times individuals will get their feet wet in physical reality by, in that sense, beginning the process and not following through in it. No matter what she has chosen to do in that sense, everything still works out in that sense in an integrated way. You can perhaps say that the individual that has, again, already been in that sense through that experience has chosen from their end to only, shall we say, step into physical reality so far. Now, perhaps the issue will be her own willingness to unconditionally love herself without judgment. For unconditional love of self means just that. No conditions. I love myself no matter what. That does not give me license to go, shall we say, nuts and hurt other people. But in that sense, my self-love is something I am worthy of, and I will not withdraw it. I will simply maintain my positive intention and move through my reality, performing the actions that are indicative of who I am in an integrated way. Does her intentions from this point forward reflect unconditional love and light?
Well, actually, I'm familiar with some of the information that I'd heard from Bashar and stuff, so I basically said some of that to her, and she's made some progress as she's getting through this, but is obviously still holding on to some of them.
The bottom line is what is done is done. The being, the entity, the consciousness still loves her unconditionally. The only issue here is her own willingness to treat herself with the same respect. Understanding that only she can know, in that sense, what is right for her. If in that sense it is possible to fulfill your agreement, in that sense it is perhaps advisable to do so, for it is within your own sense of integrity. But once the decision has been made and executed, the only issue then thereby becomes, are you now willing, having made that decision, to now continue to live the life you have chosen to live? For you had made that decision for a particular reason. Now you have before you the opportunity to fulfill that reason. Is that of assistance?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something else?
Nope. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Shirley.
Greetings.
And to you.
I began noticing when I've been working on specific people doing energy work that I would pick up different geometric forms in my mind's eye as I worked on these people and also their genetic DNA structure. Could you give me some information on what the different forms mean with each respective person, what the different geometric forms mean?
All right. Provide an example of a form, and we will in that sense interpret our perspective and point of view upon it.
Pyramid. A pyramid form?
Now, when you do so, also speak of what is occurring with the person and what are the issues being viewed. For it will, the very same symbol, vary from situation to situation.
Okay. I don't have recollection of that. Initially, I would have people come in and sit down for a reading, or I would do energy work, and the moment that I would start to project energy through me to them, I would get a pyramid type of shape. Very briefly, I've gotten circles, I've gotten spirals.
Well, in a sense, that is indicative of, perhaps you can say, the creation of a lens between you to focus, perhaps colloquially speaking, your energy. For pyramidal shapes are just that, electromagnetic lenses.
So does this belong to me, or am I perceiving this from the other person?
Well, in a sense, perhaps you can say it is your projection and then their matched co-creation.
Oh, okay. I have another question. I spent some time down in Tulum and Chichen Itza, and I was very attracted to the Mayan arithmetic or mathematical symbols.
Oh,
and my feeling about that was that they were connected to sound and light.
Yes, very often.
Could you expound on that somewhat? How does that make a connection between the symbol and a sound?
They are connected to sound and light, but very often will also be what you call pictographic in nature. Again, rather than being letters of an alphabet, are in that sense pictorial representations of complete concepts, which may, in that sense, be able to be interpreted vibrationally as sound, or vibrationally higher up, speaking stepped up as light, but again, are perhaps more conceptual in nature.
Okay.
Understand that there is, in that sense, mathematic interpretations of what you would consider to be music itself, and this applies as well.
In your culture, you have music, yes?
Yes, though it is more spontaneous in nature. We have no rock bands in that sense, and do not, in that sense, have sheet music.
Is it related to a mathematical structure also in your culture?
Well, in the sense of having mathematical relationships between tones, yes. In the sense of being consciously our purpose in doing so, not necessarily. It is far more intuitive in that way.
Would using sound create an opening to connect with your culture, say, in the physical forms?
Would absolutely be a valid way to do so, yes. And vibration itself, focused in particular ways, can literally create what you may sometimes call an interdimensional gateway or doorway. Also, and perhaps many of your ancient societies understood this better than your perhaps present societies, the purposeful focusing of particular vibratory notes can, in that sense, focused in a particular way, create what you call levitation, can, in that sense, sort of speaking, cancel out the effects of gravity itself. And one of the methodologies for moving heavy objects in your ancient past was the sonic nullification of gravity itself.
Okay.
They, in a sense, played things into place.
I had an experience a couple of weeks ago. I was in Rhode Island. I was driving down the road, and I perceived these two planes. They felt and looked as if they were World War II bombers, and they flew from the right to the left in a circular motion and back, and it was very ethereal. They looked like they were very close to the Earth, and it didn't seem like they were a reality in this time zone. And then a week later, I was in the Boston area, and I perceived the same exact thing happening. And it also felt like fuzzy or not really like planes that I would normally see on a daily basis.
Yes, we understand. It is our perception that this is, in a sense, a symbol you are providing yourself that has, in that sense, a connection to a direct past life.
Oh, okay. So is there anything that I need to know about that you can tell me?
Well, in that sense, perhaps you may understand to have been the pilot of one of those planes. So when you emotionally connect with that, you will see what comes up.
All right, thank you.
And thank you. Shut it.
Elan, I feel I presently have a connection with an extraterrestrial.
As you do.
Is it Essassani?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And should you decide in that sense to continue acting on your connection, thank you for that as well.
I absolutely will.
All right. It is an unconditional arrangement, however. We will not withdraw our particular offer, no matter what you do, unless you ask us to withdraw.
That will never happen.
All right.
I understand the government, our government.
Then you are one of the few.
Yes. You didn't let me finish. I'll never understand our government, I don't think. Has been cooperating and working with some extraterrestrials.
Only in the loosest of terms. There has been, between one particular society that has been labeled reticulum, a very loose agreement for what you would perhaps call the exchange of certain very limited, by the way, technology, for, shall we say, the government's cooperation in not interfering with what you have called abductions, what we prefer to call temporary detainments. That is the basic nature of the agreement, and not much more than that.
Are there other extraterrestrial races that they have been working with?
Not as directly, no, though they are perhaps aware of them through other sources. There are other extraterrestrial societies that are, in that sense, observing our planet, yes.
Yes, I understand that. One other question that bothers me. There's been quite a bit of discussion and evidence about the killing of our President Kennedy.
Ace, but at this point, there is little that we can add to it, for as a society, perhaps you can say you are about to find out many things about this. And there is a specific purposefulness in that timing.
All right, then we have to be patient for that.
Ace.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
Allow me to rephrase. You may be patient if you wish. You may be miserable if you wish. It is up to you.
I'll be patient.
We never insist that you become too happy, too together, or too ecstatic. It is up to you.
I understand that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Shooting.
Greetings, Elan.
And to you, good day.
Good day.
And in case you are wondering why I am saying good day, it is because upon my planet, it is day.
Good day.
And to you.
I had spoken with you just shortly ago concerning energy, and I got into discussion to you about blockage. I was too concerned about blockage or resistance because I understand that. What I'm looking for is some way I can specifically open myself up to channel more energy, either in a healing sense for our people or for the planet's sake.
All right. 'Tis very, very simple. First of all, understand that from our perspective, channeling is simply doing anything that you truly love to do with no hesitation, with conviction, like you believe it. You are most technically channeling the personality that you are right now in this quote-unquote body from the totality of your higher self. So you are already excellently experienced at channeling. Simply now apply this to this form of channeling. And perhaps again, as a slight aid, simply allowing yourself to sit down, relax, lay down, relax, whatever is relaxing and comfortable to you, to breathe deeply and fully and connect with your breath to the many, again, levels that you create. Relax in that sense while you are breathing. Allow the breathing in that sense to sweep and flush over and through you. And then ask some questions. Put yourself out, as you say, on the limb. Actually, focus your thinking by formulating the questions or formulating the statements. Make the statements, ask the question, and then simply allow, not force, not in that sense pursue, allow the answers to come forth. Last step, trust the answers. Now understand, communications always take place along the path of least resistance. Therefore, at first, much of the information may come in a form that simply is familiar to you, because that is the easiest way, in that sense, to convey the information to you. If you understand this, then you will not say, oh, it's just me. You will trust what comes through as being what will serve you to hear. Your willingness to trust what comes through, and in whatever way you are able, act upon it. For those actions, again, create the reality. That then, shall we say, opens up the connection that much more. So, breathe, relax, allow, trust, do, and then begin the whole process again. And you will find an acceleration. And in time even, will information begin to come through that you are not generally consciously aware of. You prime the pump with your trust. You stop up the pump with what you call your doubt. And again, doubt is not a lack of trust. It is simply trusting that it is not happening.
Very good. Okay. Also, I've been aware while I'm doing the energy work, working on different levels of guides. At first, I thought they were angelic in nature. Now I'm not too sure. It may not be much of a difference.
Not really. In that sense, you may understand them to be spirit form. You can interpret them in whatever way you wish. They are assistive, but only in a non-obtrusive way. It is not their job in that sense to do anything for you, and in fact, they cannot. All that they can do, in a sense, is lovingly nudge you a little bit at a time, lure you a little bit at a time. But what they are luring you to is more of yourself. And in being lured to more of yourself and being willing to express who you are, you fulfill the purpose that they have in communicating with you. So it boils down once again to the actions.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Again, I have another question concerning, I had a rather emotional discussion with my wife yesterday concerning her relationship with her grandmother. Now, we understand about past and future, not dwelling on it so much, but she was just curious as to any possible connection she has with Agnes Hart. She feels a very strong emotional tie.
There are many past life connections between all of you. But the idea is that the exploration is in this life. Therefore, keep the exploration in this life. Do not complicate it by adding more pasts to search through. Everything that is necessary to allow that agreement to fulfill itself is present right here, right now. Remain so focused and you will accelerate through it quite quickly. But there are past connections, perhaps, for the purposes of interesting information. It is not necessary, however, to proceed.
We realize it's not necessary to proceed, but again, we were just curious as to whether or not you had any specifics as to anything along that line between these two entities.
One moment.
Thank you.
Our only particular perception, and perhaps it will make more sense to you than it does to us, would be what you call life led together as sisters in what you consider to be French Revolution period. That will be enough to jog the memory.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank her.
I have a question concerning a book that I have been reading since 1976.
All right. Long book?
Well, yes. I'll be honest with you, I have not read the whole thing.
Oh, all right.
This book is called the Urantia book. Are you familiar with this? Or
we understand the reference. It is an interpretation in that sense. Sometimes, shall we say, filtered through the humans that did the interpreting. But there is much information in there that will be, in that sense, useful to you. Our simple suggestion is, when reading something within it, if it works for you, use it. If it does not, do not invalidate the other information that worked for you. Allow yourself to now hone in on your own sense of discernment, for only you know what will work for you and what does not. But you need not forsake what does work, because some of it does not, and some of it will not in your case.
Thank you for sharing with me.
And to you. Sharing.
Hello.
Greeting.
I had a question about the Hopi Indians.
All right.
And are you familiar with the seven world prophecy?
We understand the reference.
Okay, and from what you've said tonight and from other things that I've heard from Bashar, a lot of it they seem to agree with a lot of things that you have said tonight.
Aye.
But there's one difference that I don't know. Supposedly we're in the third world, they call it, or you call it third density.
Oh.
Going into the fourth world or fourth density, they predicted some destruction.
Well, again, do understand. What we are sharing is that those predictions were made in a time where that was the only way for change to occur. And there will be some portion of your population that still buys into that. But that need not affect you. And that need not affect the individual so focused in the positive outcome of the transformation. So how that will translate is that you are in a universe of positive and negative. As you expand, you become more aware of the positive, but also more aware of the negative. Awareness need not be the same as experiencing. And as we had began the interaction by sharing, what makes the difference is your actions. If you do not act, you can be more than aware of something, still get an emotional impact from it, but not need to experience it yourself. Therefore, yes, there will be certain individuals, certain groups of individuals that will perhaps have a high degree of propensity to choose transforming in a negative way. But from the perspective of the ones making the positive choice, you will be peripherally aware of it. So you will not experience it. Draw yourselves to areas whereby you will not experience it, but perhaps give yourself the opportunity in the expansion of your knowledge to be aware that it is going on in others somewhere else. But it is not our perception, globally speaking, that it need play out, that a majority, in that sense, participated in it in that way. And it can be quite the minority. And to some degree, you are seeing some examples of that already occurring. Understand that the Hopi, particularly historically, more than perhaps recently, have also from time to time had interactions directly with extraterrestrial civilization. Therefore, in some of what you call your crop circles, there may be some overlapping symbols with what you call Hopi symbology. Do proceed.
That was going to be my next question.
Oh, all right.
Was if they communicated and whom they communicated with?
There are several connections. One of them will be what you call Pleiadian. Another very strong connection will be what you call a stream Sirius consciousness. For now, those two will do. There are a few others.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank yourself.
I just did. Sherry, do understand, from my end, this interaction is taking place in my imagination. That is my perception of it. The difference is, perhaps sometimes the difference is, I trust my imagination and therefore trust that you are there. Do proceed. Sherry.
Elan, I just have a few more questions.
Oh, well.
Are reticulum the only ones abducting people?
Again, we prefer the terminology detainment, for no one is whisked away and then not brought back unless they request it. There are other opportunities of, shall we say, perhaps you can call spaceship ride, but not so much in the routine fashion that you mean from other civilizations. There has been the incidences several times of what you would call Pleiadian vessels allowing humans aboard for a ride.
Any others besides the Pleiadians?
Ace, but we are not at this time allowed to define them discreetly. There are several others, but primarily Pleiadian and reticulum.
I have in mind a race about 5 feet tall with a bony ridge starting from the back of the head down the spinal column. Much more pronounced than say a human's spinal column is.
Nice. You have an accurate sense. Do you wish to ascribe a label to that?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
No, I'd like you to give me the name. I'd like you to give me the name.
For specific reasons, I am not allowed to proceed.
I have the feeling that this is the first time that I have been here on this planet. Can you tell me if my intuition is correct?
Your intuition is correct in a sense. From the perspective of what you consider to be your future connection, and again, this may sound confusing, it would seem to be the first life. But you have reincarnational past lives which are not directly as related to the future life. Now, I know that this does not wash very well, but it is the best I can do in translating this idea, which is non-linear, but we are speaking within a linear frame of reference.
Okay, I understand that.
Oh, thank you. Similarly to my relationship to the channel. The channel could be considered my past life, one of them. But what would be considered his human past lives are not my past lives. It is a similar arrangement with you.
I understand. I'm doing some work with a group of people. We're doing a light therapy type of study.
Well, how enlightening.
It's for a nursing home, and we're working with comatose patients, patients with Alzheimer's disease. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on...
Ace, when you are playing with light, utilize the symbol of blue-white light as well, for that is a grounding representational frequency of the electromagnetic field of your planet itself. Within an aligned field, what you call dis-ease cannot exist. Therefore, you will find this to, in that sense, be a conducive atmosphere to allow those individuals, to lure those individuals into the possibility of healing themselves, which we remind you is the only thing that actually ever occurs.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's very helpful.
Is that all? Yes. All right. There will be but a few moments remaining to this interaction. Sharing.
Elan, previous to tonight, the only knowledge I had on detainee activity involved certain anatomical activities which I was not interested in partaking of in this life.
Well, not in that sense if you are judging them and comparing them to your own medical procedures. That we understand, but do proceed.
I understand that they're approaching it from a much different aspect, but at this time I still don't wish to partake.
Well, in that sense, you do not have to.
However, just a moment ago you mentioned that occasionally they do take humans for rides. How does one book passage? Aha.
Good question.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. The idea is this. Paradoxically, your best, shall we say, opportunity for doing so is to remain as completely grounded as you can. Now, I know in a sense this seems ironic and paradoxical, but it is. The grounding, the willingness to boldly be what you chose to be and not look to somewhere better. And having as an intention the idea that you would wish to share this, not as an escape, not again as something better than what you are already doing, but simply out of the joy and excitement for doing so. Your willingness to maintain that intention and attitude without fixating or obsessing upon it and going upon your physical business gives you the best chance. Then simply also being aware of what you might consider to be internal communication. Oh, go here, go there.
Thank you. I duplicate that thought.
Oh. Shutting.
Good evening, Elan.
And to you, greetings.
Elan, the term detention, as you say it, from what we can understand has been revealed to us, at least from people who have been detained, the images seem to be consistent with probes, examinations, etc. Are these true perceptions, or are they maybe a camouflage perception?
In a sense, many times they are true, direct, literal representations. However, the procedures in that sense are completely painless. So if there is the infliction, so to speak, of pain, that is from the judgment of the procedure and the feelings of helplessness and the resistance to the agreement that causes the seeming pain.
From what I understand, and I may be incorrect in this, but detainments have been going on for possibly maybe hundreds and hundreds of years. If that is correct, why are these procedures still being done? I mean, haven't they learned what they need to have learned by now?
To some degree, for the purposes of addressing directly the question you are asking, there has been what you may call a genetic tracing or follow-up. So thereby, very often there will be the continuation of many ideas with successive generations for specific reasons involving genetic straining.
Is there some sort of Galactic Federation?
Ace. Though perhaps what you consider to be the reticulum doing the retaining are not in that sense official members, for it is in that sense, even though it is by agreement, from the perspective of the association, not necessarily the preferred approach.
Your topic tonight was look before you leap.
In a sense, yes.
Are they, or even in essence, I direct this to you too, are you looking before you leap, before we are being, or should I say, someday will we be welcomed into a confederation?
Absolutely. You already, in that sense, have the invitation, but it must be responded to globally as well as individually. Individually, you can begin to embody the type of citizen, so to speak, and have a, perhaps you can say, limited club membership. But societally speaking, it will in that sense be up to the society to decide as a whole.
Do they in fact lack trust in us?
No. You lack trust in yourself, and we recognize this.
Is there a timetable?
We fully trust you to be who you are.
Is there a possible timetable for, let's say, us on a global concept where we can all be welcomed into this federation and know it, not sense it?
The likelihood of time frame from this point, and this is quite arbitrary, merely the rendering of the idea can change and accelerate the timing, would fall to approximately what you would call 30 to 50 of your years as a society, globally.
What can we do as individuals to accelerate the process?
Be the individual embodiment of a citizen of the association, which basically would translate to 5 ideas. Number 1, very simple ideas. Number 1, unconditionally love yourself and others. Very simple. Number 2, recognize that everything fits. Everything is synchronicity. Look for how it fits and you will see how it fits. And you will, in that sense, experience how it fits and begin to generate more conscious awareness of how it fits. Act on that and develop a momentum of feeling as though it fits. Number 3, from whatever is available in any given moment, choose the thing that excites you the most and act on it with integrity. Number 4, all situations are blank. You assign the meaning. Therefore, a positive meaning will always yield a positive result. In a sense, it is a reflection of number 2, that everything is synchronicity. Number 5, you always exist, always have, always still do, and always will, right now, right here. Here and now are the only place and time that ever exist. Therefore, you always have in any given now moment everything you possibly need to proceed if you will allow yourself to use what is right there. The present is not truly a result of the past, other than perhaps having led to the present. The past has no hold on right now, on the present, unless you say it does, unless you define that it does, unless you believe that it does. Then you feel it, think it, and act that way and get that effect. But you can truly liberate yourself in any given moment by living in that moment and not creating a connection, a causal connection, an excuse many times because something that had happened. The only effects you feel from the past is your assignment of the definition that it has an effect upon you. These 5 ideas, embodied, lived, make you a member, in a sense, automatically.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. There will be time for one more interaction. Sure.
Yes. Would it be an accurate perception to say that each one of us that is here this evening also has a futuristic part of ourselves that is part of your culture that is here this evening?
Not all that will be part of my society directly, but all, as well as you, again being eternal, have many infinite number of past lives, also have many future lives.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. At this time, allow me to once again, and for the first time, since right now is the first time as well, extend to you our unconditional love and appreciation for your willingness to act as nothing less than ambassadors from your civilization. It is our honor, joy, and revelation to, in that sense, swim in the sea of your collective and individual consciousness. Although you may perceive very often that you do derive many things from interacting with us, I again remind you, so do we. We are truly all equal beings, though our particular expression and choice of consciousness is more expanded. Expansion or contraction does not mean better or worse, simply different emphasis, different focus. We see you completely, no matter what, as our equal, and see all creation as existing on equal ground and equal footing. When you are beginning to be willing to look at it that way, then also will you, in that sense, be walking as a member of the association of the between 300 and 400 some odd civilizations, the association of worlds itself. We thank you once again and bid you a most fond and loving good evening.